Hi, good morning people, friends, adults, children, everyone in between. Good morning. Chris from Feasted and Feast with Friends here. We are here today for the first session of our cookery for school kids and whoever. So, good morning and welcome. So, today we're going to make some cheese scones, okay? I'm just going to ease in. We're not rushing to begin with because people will some people were really ready, all prepared, ready to go, going, come on, let's go, come on, let's. We're going to ease in because there'll be a few people just getting things ready, maybe, kids still brushing teeth, whatever. So we're just easing in. So we're going to start off by talking about our ingredients today. Talking about people getting ready, I have one person who is a local person to me here in Newcastle under Lyme, who's just messaged and asked, can I come pick up some baking powder? So yeah, just mindful of they've got to get home now. I'm going to go far, but even so just waiting for everybody. So here we go, recipe, cheese scones. Ingredients, 220 grams of self-raising flour, 55 grams of chilled butter, if that's still in the fridge, perfect. 1 teaspoon of baking powder, a pinch of salt, 120 grams of cheese, and about 100 ml of milk. Now, the other day I spoke about ratios in this recipe, and especially in baking more so than anything else, you can find ratios in lots of recipes. This is present in things like bread, pastry, and I'm going to talk to you a bit about this through the week. This is my only full live post this week, but there'll be other bits and pieces going on. I'm going to focus around sort of starch, flour this week. I think that'll be a really good thing to do. And yeah, so we're going to really think about those ratios. So today, our ratio, did anybody work it out? Let's see if anyone posts. Did anybody work out the ratio? Did you get the ratio? What was it? Flour to butter. Anybody? Okay. So the ratio, 4:1 for scones. Okay, that's your starting point. You'll see other recipes that are a little bit different, but principally that's the way it goes. Yes, Angela Tyra, boom, first one in there. Well done. No prizes, just for fun. So yeah, 4:1, perfect. So 4 amounts of flour per 1 amount of butter. Okay, so it's funny that quite a few people say it's great you're involving maths in cooking. Brilliant, fantastic, and absolutely is brilliant. Yeah, I agree. And it's it's just always there, isn't it? It's just sometimes you have to maybe just. I guess when you really know a recipe, you realise that it's there. It's about sharing that with people. It's really important. So 4:1 is the way forward for your basic scone recipe. Okay. So a couple of things about ingredients. How are all the little ones doing? All good? Just mindful, I'm waffling a bit. So here we go. Self-raising flour. If you've got it, great. If you've only got plain flour, you are adding about 2 teaspoons to 200 to 220 grams. That'll be absolutely fine. And we're going to add sort of a little another teaspoon to that just to give it another sort of little boost in the rise. The other thing is butter. You might be using margarine, you might have not been able to get butter, you might not use butter, which is fine. The main reason for using butter is it's got much less water content in it, and what we want is those really crumbly scones. We want those scones that warrant a plate. If you're confidently walking around your house eating a scone with no crumbs, you need to do this a bit better. But plate, crumbs, perfect. Okay. So, if there are any questions, my screen's a little bit further away from me today, so if there are any questions, I'll try and answer those afterwards. I can see lots of things coming up, which is absolutely brilliant. And I might just every so often just have a lean forward and try and answer something. Okay guys, so let's get started. So, I've just gone for the recipe, the ingredients, just to give you a chance to weigh stuff out if you haven't done already. Seen some pictures from home, some people got stuff in containers and stuff, some people have... We'll all be at different stages, and do you know what? That's exactly the same as the classroom. In the old days when kids used to bring bags of stuff in, Some kids would be really well prepped, some wouldn't, and it's just about sort of taking everyone on that journey and getting you to the end point. So, starting point. I have a few different bits of equipment here. I've got some cutters, okay, metal ones that aren't fluted, old school plastic fluted one. Mixing bowls, knife. I have got some sharp knives I'm going to talk about a bit later. I've got some, at a moment then, I've got a baking tray, okay, scales, and if we need anything else throughout that, I'm sure some of you have gone, he's missed out rolling pin, we need a rolling pin. You don't actually need a rolling pin for this recipe. If you want, great, if not, fine. You know, you really don't need that. Scones are a real quick, simple bread, and that's the whole purpose of this recipe. So here we go. So we've got our bowl. I'm going to put in 220 grams of my flour. I'm going slow, guys, so if you're just catching up, don't worry. You can watch it again as well later. 220 grams of my flour. Okay. Like I said before, self-raising flour. If you've only got plain flour, all you need to do is add 2 teaspoons of this to it and 1 extra in there as well. Okay. I'm going to add a pinch of salt. Okay. I'm using the Cornish sea salt here. Really important that you use sea salt, right? Because you're getting all the different minerals in there. Table salt, you know, the stuff we've had for years, although that is essentially all the, is just sodium. So we talk about salt that's really bad for us. That's the stuff that's really bad for us. You know, sea salt, it's got a range of minerals in there as well. Right, kiddies, how are we doing? How are we doing, little ones? Older ones? Ones in between? Make sure your head chef, do not let your parents boss you about. Okay? And parents, if you've got 2 or 3 kids cooking there, you know, well done, amazing, enjoy the journey. So I've got my butter cubed up, okay, around that size, about 1 centimetre cubed, okay. And all I'm going to do first, I'm just going to lightly dust the butter with, or lightly dust the butter with the flour, okay. So in there I've got all my baking powder that I need, I've got my salt. And the technique here is just using your finger ends. So my hands are gonna be down like that, but I'm gonna tip them up like that just to show you. So you're doing this, you're rubbing your thumb across your fingers like this, okay? And that's called the rubbing in technique. And the reason why we do the rubbing in technique is this. What we are doing is we are coating those flour particles with fat. And the reason why we're doing that is that when we add the liquid, which is milk, we are going to have all those flour particles coated in butter, okay? Does that make sense? And the reason for that is that if flour hasn't got the fat in it and they're not coated, what happens is that more gluten is made. And what you end up with is a really stretchy dough. And what we don't want is a stretchy dough. We want a dough that's really crumbly. So everything we're doing to make this recipe is all about keeping that dough really, really crumbly, okay? Which is why we need to be really careful about the amount of liquid we add at the end. So I'm just doing that, rubbing that in. Right, now because that butter's chilled, that takes a little bit of time. I'm going to show you a cheat in a minute, okay, as well. I'm doing this 2 ways. So, rubbing that in, that's going to take a few minutes. So this is the time just to have a bit of dance about, just relax, you know. You'll notice while you are doing that the flour starts to get a bit denser, a bit heavier, it changes colour a little bit as well, it comes creamier, maybe a bit yellow depending on what your butter's like or your margarine, but you'll notice it change. And there is a little test. This isn't ready yet, but what I do is I just shake the bowl, and if any lumps appear of butter, you've got to keep going, okay? It might be that, you know, if you're doing one each, you know, just looking over the shoulder of your brother or sister, checking, hey, that's good. And do you know what I always say to kids? in schools always offer words of encouragement? Yeah? Kids are so used to being very focused on what they're doing. Mine's good, mine's not good. Oh, yours is brilliant. Yeah, yours is brilliant too. Amazing. This is good. Hey, if you thought of just doing it this way, okay, I can do it that way. So really sort of building each other's confidence, guys. Amazing. Just think, if you smash this one today, you do a really good job of this. After a few weeks, possibly even a few months, you're going to be absolutely amazing. Keep going. So really looking for ways to encourage each other, really important, yeah? So what I always say is words of encouragement every single time, not just from sort of adults, but child to child, always. So rubbing those in, and that's coming on an absolute treat. It's starting to look like breadcrumbs. So the bits of flour are a bit bigger, okay? They're becoming sort of heavier. They're creamy in colour. They're looking really good. Okay. So I'm going to do this recipe, and I'm going to show you another recipe as well. Same recipe, but another variation, just to sort of skill it up a bit as well if you want to take it to another level. If you want to expand your expertise, you can revisit this later on today or maybe another day. You know, it's there for you when you want it. So 2 recipes today based around, or 2 outcomes based around the same recipe. So I'm happy with that. Okay, so there we go. Breadcrumb consistency, little shake. There aren't any lumps. Any bits that might look like a lump in the picture are just lumps because of the moisture in the actual butter. Okay, so but that is all lovely breadcrumb consistency. Okay. So while you're doing that, I reckon some of you might have finished that already. Some of you might have maybe a few kids there, maybe 2 or 3 of you sort of like, come on, yeah, let's go, well, that's brilliant, yeah. Doing all that business. So while we do that, or while you do that, I'm just going to go for this. So I'm fully aware that, you know, we've got so many people at home with lots of, you know, ways that you might be able to cook, and maybe some people that find cooking quite difficult, you know, of any age. So what I'm going to do is going to show you another way. So I've got my food processor just here, okay? Probably just about to see that. I can't because of all the comments. So here we go. So into my food processor, exactly the same process, but the great thing about this is, there's 2 good things about this. One, because we're trying to minimise gluten growth, the food processor generates very little heat. Whereas when your hands are in that bowl, there is heat there, which is starting to build a very, very tiny bit of gluten. Talk a bit more about gluten in a second. So I've got my flour in there. I've already got all my raisin agent in there, my baking powder, a little pinch of salt. Then I'm just going to cube up my butter. Some of those bits there are quite small anyway. How are we going, guys? We doing good? So far, so good. Very good. Okay, so cube butter in there. Remember, this is my second version. Okay, so I'm showing you a slightly different way. If maybe, you know, you struggle with your hands for some reason, or maybe your children, you know, find it a little difficult because, you know, it takes a little bit of energy in the fingers. So here I'm just using a food processor with a big blade in the bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm doing exactly that technique, the rubbing in technique, but using a food processor. Okay? So I'm just going to pulse it. Little pulse. A few more seconds. So what I'd also say, if you give your hands a feel, if you've got cold hands, brilliant at pastry. If your hands are quite hot, fantastic bread maker. Now this recipe, kind of in the hand heat sort of measure, kind of fits somewhere in between because you're not going to need it for very long, so hot hands don't matter so much. But at the same time, when you're doing the rubbing in technique, you don't want too much heat as well. So just because the blades have been through that, I'm just going to very quickly give it a quick rub, but that's great. So that's my rubbing in technique done in my second batch as well. Okay, so at this stage, I'm just going to put my oven on. So ovens are 200 degrees centigrade, 180 fan, or gas mark 6. Now, I know from my oven it's quite hot, so I'm going to go about 170, 180, just to contradict what I said. If you know that your oven runs quite high, then maybe just take it down 5-10 degrees. Okay, so next step, I now have 2 lots of mixture at breadcrumb consistency. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grate my cheese. It's here. So, parents, if you've got little ones, maybe just sort of watching over them, or maybe just possibly even doing it for them. Maybe you've already bought, maybe you've bought some grated cheese. I don't know, but just obviously taking care on these here. They kind of, adult skin's a bit thicker, but small children, obviously, just take it easy. So I'm just going to grate that. You might have a box grater that's a bit safer. We've got some double Gloucester here. You might have cheddar. You could use a bit of brie, quite nice. You could use a bit of Stilton. Whatever you've got is great. So, while I'm just doing that. Do we have to use cheese? You don't, Katie, you don't have to use cheese. Yeah, plain ones is good. Yeah, use plain ones. If you've got sun-dried tomatoes, you could use a handful of those, chop them up. Spring onions, keep them plain. Some dried herbs. You know, if you want to switch this around to a sweet recipe, just stick in maybe 2 dessert spoons of caster sugar or golden caster sugar. That'll work really well. Either way is absolutely fine. So, some people at this stage keep a bit of cheese back to pop on top. I find it just burns a little bit, so I like to put that in, put it all in basically. So, in we go. Okay, so I'm just going to pause for breath. So if you're just tuning in a little bit late, I'm Chris from Feasted. Thank you for joining us today. Absolutely amazing. So hopefully you've got all your ingredients. If you do need to catch up, I'm going to share this afterwards, so you'll still be able to do it later on. So you've already done the cheese. Well done, Lisa. Fantastic. Well done, kids. Brilliant. Can you tell us how much butter, please, Karen? Yes, I can. So basically, the amount of butter is 55 grams, okay? So it's based on 4:1. So we've got 220 grams of flour and 55 grams of butter. There was another question I just saw there. How much butter? What temperature? Oven is 200 degrees if it's not a fan oven, and 180 if it is a fan oven. Gas mark 6. If it's gas, I think I've covered all there. Oh, don't worry, we caught up. Excellent, fantastic, brilliant. Okay, so I've got my cheese in there. Gonna mix that around. These are very cheesy scones. As a chef, it's like the prerequisite. If something says cheesy on a menu, the one thing it should be is cheesy. That's the way I always think about an item of food. If it says it's going to be something, it needs to be, and these will definitely be cheesy. So, I've got 100 ml of milk here, okay? And at this stage, what I'm going to mix this with, to be honest, you could use a wooden spoon, you could use a metal spoon, you could use a fork, it doesn't matter so much. But what I'm going to use is a cutlery knife, traditional, okay? And the reason for that is we're not going to move the mixture too much because we're just cutting through it, and the reason for that is is that you are there. It's like another little prevention of making too much gluten. The more you're in there with a big spoon going like this, that's just building gluten, yeah, because you're mixing it around, really pulling that mixture around. This way, we're sort of gliding through it a bit more and just being a bit more sort of delicate, so that gluten doesn't quite build up. Right, so a little catch-up time if you're catching up. So for the older ones, bit of science here. Gluten. Gluten is not in this bag of flour. There is no gluten in this bag of flour. What there is two proteins that make gluten. Gliadin and glutenin. As soon as you add liquid and start to push that dough around, gluten starts to be made. Okay? So gluten does not exist in this flour. What they do with gluten-free flour is they remove one of those gluten-making proteins, such as gliadin, okay, to prevent that bond happening between the two gluten-making proteins. Okay? So that's really important because you're starting to think about, you know, gluten very differently. It's not in there. No, it's not. I used to sometimes say that in class. Kids, is there gluten in this flour? Yeah, of course there is, sir. Don't be so silly. Of course there's gluten. There isn't. It's not until you add liquid, add moisture, in this case we're adding milk, then gluten starts to be built. Anyone who's made bread before knows that kneading that dough builds up the gluten. So if we want crumbly and gluten is stretchy, then we know that we don't need or don't want to knead this dough that much because we want to prevent it from becoming stretchy. So what I'm going to do, I've got my 100 ml of milk there, I'm going to go in with about half. Okay? I want enough liquid so it comes together as a dough. When making doughs, especially with bread, not so much this, but when adding liquid, if you go very, very cautiously, and you know, when you start making recipes like bread, it's that tendency, like you're either just an all-inner, you know, and it's gone too sticky, or it's just this tiny bit. If you go tiny bit at a time for a long time, then it can become quite tough. So it's important to get your mixture, enough liquid in there. Another thing about flour is it's a really reactive ingredient in the sense that, you know, we think of it as one of the most common ingredients like ever, and it's just flour. It's, you know, it's easy. There's nothing technical about flour, but actually there's tons of stuff technical about flour, in the sense that the rate it absorbs liquid and the amount of liquid it needs depends on things like when it was harvested, how it's been stored, the air moisture in here, all those things, the time of year will affect that as well. So, you know, that's why in recipes, quite often when it comes to liquid in recipes, it'll say about, because no recipe writer can be 100% certain that it's exactly the right amount, which is frustrating when you're teaching these things. I've seen it in kids' faces in the front of a class where I said, right guys, I cannot tell you the exact amount of liquid that you're going to need in that recipe. And a massive thing with education and teaching and being in that environment is trust. And when kids hear me say that, they have this look on the face that just says, he doesn't know what he's doing. But I think it's really important that we actually and totally understand the way we have to be quite intuitive about the way we use flour. It's really important. Okay. So, hand in there, gently squashing it together. Now I can tell that's going to need a little bit more liquid in there. I might be reaching for a little bit more yet, I don't know. I reckon that's just about got it. So I'm just sort of like grasping it like that and just sort of gently pushing it into a ball, and that's what we're after when it comes together as a ball or a dough, okay? That's a good question. What's the difference between a dough and a batter? So here we go. So, I'm sure you're all absolutely flying through this. If anyone's got any flour elsewhere than the worktop, then, you know, tidying up's fun as well. Get a song on for tidying up. The A-Team theme tune works really well. Motivation, yeah? Mums, dads, I'm sure you'd be tempted to say, listen, if you don't get tidy, you're not going outside for your break, you know? There we go, my dough is made. Right, common concern from students at this stage is, it's got cracks in it. It's going to fall apart. Yeah, that's exactly what we want, because where those cracks are, you know, you've got That's where it's going to break. That's where the crumbliness comes in. So you want those cracks. There's a real tendency, and those perfectionists in the classroom, they're like, there's cracks, it's going to fall apart. So there's a tendency to worry about that, but it's exactly what we want. So go with it. Now, there's my dough. I'm happy. I like it about sort of 4 to 6 centimetres high, because I know then I'm going to get a really good tall scone, and it just stands proud, doesn't it? It looks really good. So a couple of different cutters. I've got little ones like this. So this would be like, you know, maybe if you're doing lots of little desserts possibly, or afternoon teas, that kind of thing I'm thinking of, or savoury bits like this. Bigger ones, sort of more standard size, probably about 6, 7, 8 centimetres, no, that's 6, 7 centimetres. And then the larger one, the more traditional fluted edge plastic. If you are using these, there's that tendency to want to twist. What you want is those lines on that flute to stay really straight. If you twist them, the scone will go brrr. Okay, we want it to go. Okay, so just push down and then move the dough away from the sides. All right. And the other thing about these is, look, flexible. So just gently push, so you get your circle and not an oval. Or you could try and do an oval if you wanted to. Here we go. So another thing is, you know, sometimes people like to put on some egg or some butter, or some milk, sorry, just brushed on the top. Now, my mum, expert scone maker, absolute expert scone maker. Mum never did that. They were just always a little bit floury, you know, and with that cream and jam in, or whatever was in the middle, savoury or sweet, whatever it was. Just lovely, really, it sort of accentuates that crumbliness. But if you want to brush a bit of egg on it, you can do, and I'm going to do that actually on my next recipe. 2 there. So, another little trick. So when you're thinking about liquid, and you talk about maths and stuff like that maybe, keeping it light of course, what you want to do is think about estimating. So, have a game where you can see who can estimate 100ml or 50ml or 75ml, or can you get 4 cups and make up 100ml from a jug without even knowing what the amounts are? Because one of my motivations is always when I'm using the scales is, can I guess if it's right? You know, can I cut a bit of butter and then work out if it's right? So you can use that sort of game for estimating. It's really good. My motivation for that is I read about a chef actually that once didn't have scales in his kitchen, which at first I thought was crazy, but then as I thought about it, it just really makes you become so much more intuitive, and you become more resourceful about how to weigh and measure. So I've got about 5 scones out of that, and actually my last one's a little bit smaller. So that's the tester. You don't need to add oil to your baking tray, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a bit of flour. Okay, now these aren't going to spread. They're going to stay as they are. Okay, they're going to rise a little bit, but they're not going to spread out. So, but I'd still leave plenty of space in between so air can circulate around them. Okay, this will take around sort of 12-15 minutes. I like to just bake them a little bit more just to make sure you've got the texture on the side. Okay, so if you're ready to put those in the oven. Tips on the oven. Now, what I'd say is for anyone with glasses, you've got an extra safety awareness, because you know that when that oven door opens up, you're going to get steamy windows, and you're probably more aware of it just because that even the kids, if they've used oven before, they'll be the same. So always open the oven door, standing back, lots of space, letting that hot air out. Okay, get yourself a tea towel or oven gloves. And off we go. So that's the first one done. Quick little tidy up for me. Right, have we got any questions? Frank and I are making a glorious mess. That's from Karen. Fantastic. Okay. It's all part of the joy. You know, it's amazing because I, cook with classes of up to 30 and over 30, and it can go with total ease, and everyone's successful. And sometimes I bake at the weekend with my daughter, and it's just it can be utter mayhem. How long in the oven? About 12 to 15 minutes, Lisa. We're going to sort of have a little look before then, just to see how we're getting on. It's all about using our instincts, and that's one thing I really want to talk about. You know, cooking should be an instinctive thing. It's about looking for those signs. How long in the oven? That's Holly Robinson. Hello there, Holly. Yeah, so about 12 to 15 minutes. That could be, I think that's Zach. Yeah, I'm not sure about the where the knobs on the oven go. I'm not sure there, Zach. You want to, I think you've got a gas, electric oven. So basically, if you look at those dials, this is a young man that's at home cooking, I think. He's a teenager. So Zach, here we go. So what you're going to do, you're going to, if you've got 3 dials, you want it to be on a fan oven setting, which will be a circle with 3 little blades coming off. Okay, that was 4, wasn't it? 2, 3 blades, and it should be. If your home ovens tend to go up to around 230, newer ones a bit higher. So you want to be probably up near the top of heat, if that makes sense. So around 180 is where you need to be, if it says 180. I hope that helps. Okay. Hi Maura. I think I've answered the question about how long in the oven. Do we switch to 180? Samantha, yeah, do switch to 180 if you have a fan oven, which I'm sure most people have got. Tricia, good morning. Emily said she's having a great time cooking with you. Well, she's cooking with you. I'm just here helping it along. But it's great to hear that you're having a good time. Absolutely brilliant. No worries, Zach. I'm glad you sorted that out. Fantastic. Okay, next recipe. So same start. I've got my salt, I've got my butter, and I've got my flour in there, already breadcrumbed, ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and skill this up a little bit. So if you're maybe a little bit older, or you've made scones lots of times before, remember today's all about a starting point. It's about giving everyone that sort of confidence to sort of go forward and do this every week. But if you want to skill up and you want to take it to the next step, this is a great opportunity for you. So in here I've got some wild garlic, an amazing ingredient, and it's everywhere outside at the minute, in the sense that if you take your dogs for a walk in the woods, the chances are you'll see these long, thin leaves, okay? Right, and if you see these, it looks a bit brighter because of the light. Not quite as that bright, but you get a better sense there. If you see these leaves, this is wild garlic, right? Now, if you see bluebells, they look very similar, but the leaves look quite similar, but they're much thinner, sort of almost half the size, and tend to be the same width all the way up, more like, well, even less than that, but you understand what I mean. So things like this, okay? You rip it open, it just smells so sweet and so garlicky, like onion. It's just amazing. They're so good. So I'm going to chop those up in a minute, okay? I always say about foraging, wild garlic's a really good starting point into foraging if you want to look into it, right? But always do it safely. So kids, always make sure you're with your mum and dad. Always pick away from a path because of dogs, obviously, you know. So always pick clean leaves. Always pick away from the path. If you're unsure when you're picking them, just rip it open. Smell. If it smells garlicky, oniony, you know you've got it. In the next couple of weeks, you'll be seeing little buds on the top with white flowers coming out as well, and very thin stems. You can eat those as well, and they're beautiful. So just watch out for them. Great, amazing ingredient. Make pestos, chop them up and put them into pasta, on pizzas, everything like that. Just brilliant, just like a herb basically. So a couple of knives I've got here. So when we're in schools with years 5 and 6 upwards, generally we use these knives. These are really good because they come with a cover, a little protective cover, and the great thing about them is there's no point on the end as well. These are Cutlery Swiss made, or as a very intelligent young man said to me in the class, it says made in China on it, sir. Well, there's still a Swiss company. So, the great thing about these is there's a bit of weight to them. And quite often, schools that we have in food classrooms can be quite light, and naturally, if they haven't got a bit of weight to them, we can almost not respect them as much as we should. These are great because they have a bit of weight. They feel like you need to respect them, but also there's no point on the end, so there's that added security. And because of the weight, we can start to build our skills, which is really important. If we're not using a knife that doesn't allow us to build our skills, then we're kind of sort of not providing an opportunity to do that. So, chopping up the wild garlic. For this, I'm going to use my bigger chef's knife. So just chop it up that nice and small. Now I'm using quite a bit in this recipe because as the heat sort of gets to the wild garlic, it will reduce the intensity of that flavour. So I'm putting quite a bit in so that the flavour is still quite strong. So I'm going to put a bit of that in. I'm also going to use a little bit of lemon zest. Just taking that down off the side with my little knife here. I'd just like to thank my wife for taking the kids out this morning. They're just going out to out on the scooters. Now I'm going out. I think my son might be cooking with me next week. So taking off the zest. So garlic, lemon, we know that works well together. A little chop through with that. So chopping these things, guys, if you're a bit older, the sort of knife skills do really start around year 5, so around sort of 9, 10. You know, if you're really confident and you, with your child using a knife, do that, obviously supervise them. We tend to use other hand tools around sort of years 3 and 4, peelers, graters, that kind of stuff, and move on to knives year 5. That seems to work well. A sensible approach, I think. So there we go, all chopped up, nice little bits of lemon zest. That's all going to go into there, into our bowl. Smells incredible. And I'm just going to back that up then with a spice, which I am just looking for. Hang on a second. I was going to add some spice there, I'm not sure it is. Yeah, there we go, Ras Al Hanout. So a little Middle Eastern spice blend. So there's turmeric, cumin, rose petals in there, garlic, a little bit of salt, just a little bit of spice in the background. It's really, really fragrant. Some of those Middle Eastern spice blends are exceedingly fragrant more than they are really hot spicy. So they're just so... If spice blends could be refreshing, they are. They're just incredible. So, onto my milk now. It's another 100ml of milk. In we go. So, Tricia, hi. So, I was just going to mention something about that actually. So yeah, every Monday is live cooking like this today, okay? Stuff in there, sort of talking about science, stuff talking about ingredients, etc, etc. Through the week I'm going to post some little skill videos and maybe some little challenges along the way, but live cooking is every Monday, excuse me. If you want to send me a message, send me photos of what your children have done, absolutely amazing. Post that on my Feasted page. That'll be absolutely brilliant. Okay, so I've got my extra flavours in there. I'm going to start going in again with my liquid milk. If you want to add some yogurt in and have that still as a 100ml volume, that's perfect. You could do that. Yogurt would just add an extra little bit of flavour but also might increase the rise as well. I'll talk about that in a second. So just bringing that together. In a minute or so, I'm just going to have a little check on my scones when I've just finished this. Just bringing that together as a dough. So the great thing is now, if you know that you can make sort of 5-6 scones out of that, and you know the ratio, you can then work out, if you need to make 100 scones, you could do that just with a simple sort of, just working that ratio out. So, you know, if you're doing afternoon tea for somebody, whether that's, you know, kids or parents, you can do that easily to work that out. It's also really good for working out costings as well. You know, if you're doing a project, you want to work out costings, all those things are good. So what I'm going to do with this batch in a second, I'm just going to divide it into 3 pieces. I'm just going to check my scones. So this is where we're at the minute. So they've risen, okay, but they're a little bit crispy on top, getting a bit of colour, but not quite there. So an extra, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 minutes looking at that. Sort of just getting that instinct, that idea about what's going on in that oven. Yeah, the main thing that's happening beyond that rise of the dough is dextrinization. And dextrinization is basically starches turn into sugars, okay? Which is where all that colour comes from when they bake. So it's the same with toast, it's the same with anything you bake in the oven, that dry heat, you get that dextrinization. If you take away the dry heat, you generally don't get very much dextrinization. One thing you can do is, if you want to test out dextrinization, get a piece of bread, get some foil, a bit of tin foil, cut out maybe initials with a pair of scissors, a little logo, a little smiley face or something, pop that onto the bread, bake it in the oven, and obviously where that foil is prevents the dextrinization. So that proves the point. That proves that if you take away that dry heat, dextrinization doesn't happen. So that's a really good way to understand dextrinization. Okay. So here's my second dough. I'm going to break that into 3 pieces. Now, for any of you kids that wants to be a pro baker, start thinking like this: accuracy. So if I'm making bread rolls, I weigh every little bit just to make sure they're absolutely accurate. Contradicting what I said before about being instinctive, but do you know, life does contradict itself. We have to accept that. Sometimes we have to approach things in different ways. It's about being sort of flexible and being adaptable. Very, very good in the current market, isn't it? And what's happening at the minute. I hope you're all really well, by the way. Hope you're all sort of adapting to this crazy situation we're in. But you know, it's bringing out lots of good, isn't it? Lots of time with the family. So they're all about 100, that's great. So, little dust of flour on the board. Sometimes you see lots of flour going on, you don't want a lot of flour. A lot of flour is going to cause you problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll these out. Now when rolling, it's almost like a little double queen wave. Now there's not much gluten in this mixture, but if we do it like this, it becomes really accurate. Okay, change the queen at the same time, and that way you don't get the flappy bits at the end that goes like this, and you don't get the lump in the middle. So rolling, that smells amazing, it's so fragrant. So I'm just thinking, while I'm doing this, I'm smelling the fragrance here because of these herbs and spices, but I'm also smelling what's going on in the oven. So some of you now might be tidying up. Some of you might have the A-Team song on, just going, yeah, well. So I'm going to get these the same length. Yes. The beautiful thing is where those little bits of rose petal are popping through, these little purpley red bits, it looks amazing. There we go, getting there now. Last little bit. Now, as I've already said, we haven't got the gluten structure in this, so this is a bit of a challenge. I'm just going to give them another little roll until I'm a little bit thinner. There we go, amazing. Now, for anyone who's seen my Feast with Friends page this morning, will have seen some fresh sourdough bread this morning, which was amazing. But the sad thing about that was, I've lost my bread scraper and I broke my palette knife, so I'm working around this today. Okay, so I've got my 3 sort of thin bits of dough now that I've rolled out, really accurately doing that, the Queen's Wave. Okay. Kids are on the trampoline now. Brilliant, that's excellent. Scones looking good in the oven, Vicky, brilliant. Using non-wheat flour, how much raisin agent would I use? The same, Jane. So if you're working 100 grams, excuse me, 100 grams of flour to 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Becky, hello there, Becky. Willow would like to know what the next recipe is. I will tell you this week, don't worry about that. I'm still just working out which one I'm going to use. It might be something around bread. We might use a pan. So yeah, I will tell you very soon. Liz, hello there. This is fab. We're watching how I'm baking them this afternoon, having them for afternoon tea. How civilised, lovely. Right, okay. So very nearly there now, guys. Just a couple more minutes. So, what we're going to do with this, we're going to make a little plait. Okay? So I'm going to turn my board around. See that? Yeah? Now, as the mix is quite dry, I'm just going to add a little bit of water there just to pop them together. And we're going to go and just do a little plait of this now. Being really delicate with it because it is a scone mix, so the likelihood of it breaking is quite high. But if we're delicate, we can do that. Okay, and then the same at the end there. Okay, get an idea of that. Now what I'm going to do with that then is I'm going to transfer that to a baking tray with a bit of flour. Okay. Here comes the tricky bit. Just resting that there. Okay, so I have an egg here. I said before I was going to do it that way. So on this one I'm going to add an egg, little glaze on top, just to add a bit of extra finish to it, a little finishing technique. What I'm going to do to that egg as well is I'm going to add a little bit of salt just to relax those proteins. Anyone who's done egg washing before, there's that challenge of it being quite stringy and it doesn't really spread very well. So all I'm going to do is add all I've done there is add a little bit of salt, break that up, and to leave that a couple of minutes or maybe slightly less. So, just made a coffee while waiting for my scones to go with Zach on his second batch. Good lad, excellent, brilliant, fantastic, yummy smell, brilliant. Okay, so let's have a look. Should be just about there, guys. Okay, so nice golden top and firm on the sides. Now, as that cools, they'll come loose, and if they don't, a little sort of just push underneath is really useful just to release them. But they should just start to come loose as they just start to cool. So a nice bit of texture around the side, bit of dexterisation on the top. Okay, that's what we're after. So I normally let that sort of just relax a little bit longer, but I'm going to brush that on now. So that'll just give it a really nice finish. And I'm going to be careful not to get any of that on the baking tray, because that's where it'll stick. Alright, so just glazing that over. Okay, so you get the idea of that. I'm going to pop that in the oven now. I'm just going to take a photo of that just so I can show that on my page as well. Okay, so that's going to go into the oven. Now if you think about that dough there, guys, because it's all sort of in one piece, even though it's 3 separate pieces where sort of plastered together, heat getting to the centre of that is going to take a little bit longer. So you're talking probably 12, maybe sort of 14, maybe 16, 17 minutes to bake that. But I'm going to be checking that just to make sure. Okay, so hope you've enjoyed today. Hope it's been useful. I'm sure, and I hope the kids have enjoyed it. Watch out this week for more posts around skills and extra bits and pieces. Enjoy your week and take it easy. Just going to roll the credits. Here we go. Just getting the right way around. Take it easy, guys. Chris from Feast with Friends, cooking with you today. Have a great day. Enjoy your week. Watch out for more posts. See you soon.